Bizarre letter from my 44M ex-wife, 44F, 2 decades later? I received a strange letter today from my ex-wife. I will try to give a brief history. We were college sweethearts. We dated for approximately 4 years and married in 2000. The marriage was a disaster. Looking back, I realize we had grown apart and the relationship was not good prior to the marriage. However, we were in our early 20s, we had been together for several years and it felt like the logical next step. Within a few months it was clear that we were no longer compatible and things quickly turned ugly. We were both unhappy and we fought daily. After approximately 5 months together as a married couple, we separated. We spent time apart but talked off and on and discussed working it out, but eventually we called it quits. We officially divorced in 2003 and we have not communicated since 2004. After the divorce, my life has been great. I have a fantastic job and I am married to a wonderful woman. We have a great relationship, 12 years married, and an amazing family. I look back on my first marriage as an embarrassment but ultimately a learning experience that made me a better person. I can't even tell you the last time I have thought about my ex-wife. After not communicating for 17+ years, I assumed we had both completely moved on. Imagine my surprise when earlier today I received a letter in a plain white envelope with no return address. The letter was to me but it was addressed to my first name. I have always gone by middle name and only junk mail or bills use my first name. My wife opened the letter but quickly walked over and gave it to me. The letter is 1 page, single-spaced with minimized margins and small font. The letter begins by stating, "This letter was written for information purposes as I did not have the courage in the past to share these things and wanted to make amends with the situation to clear my conscience. Please know there will be no further communication." The rest of the letter goes on to repeatedly state that the marriage was a mistake and she never wanted to marry me. She felt pressured to do it but she knew deep down she did not want to be with me. She knew it would not last, so she never bothered to change the credit cards and social security and her maiden name. She never wanted to have kids with me and that the marriage was just a blip in her life and no different from going to the store to buy something new. She talks about being uncertain why the divorce took so long as we knew it was over and it should have legally ended in 2001. After repeating what a mistake I was on several other lines, she then speaks about how she met the true love of her life around the time we separated and how amazing he is compared to me. The first night with him was more amazing than anything she had ever experienced and all she wanted was to be with him. At one point she notes, "It was easy for me to move on, as I always knew we should not have been together." She mentions that we should have just annulled the marriage shortly after as she only did it because she was pressured and we misled each other. She concludes by stating that she should have told me this 20 years ago but wanted this off my chest so that I can live my life knowing that I finally shared the truth with you. The last line speaks that the only good from our time together was that she met the love of my life, my Prince Charming. I am at a loss as to what to make of this. First, I should note, her dates are wrong. We separated but never discussed divorce until a year or so later. She says she confessed her love her now husband a few months after we separated in early 2001. She leaves out the part that we hooked once or twice after that date or that we had talked about kids, but I was the one that wanted to wait. I don't know about changing her name, but I know that she took my name in the marriage as that was something we had to address in the divorce. Leaving these inaccuracies aside, I can't figure out what to make of this letter. What would prompt someone to send you a letter almost 20 years later telling you that your marriage was a mistake and their new husband is awesome? If you wanted to simply get it off your chest, as the letter states, that you never wanted to marry me, why now and why go out of your way to insult me in the letter? My wife and I have read it multiple times and to be honest, initially we found it funny. Now I just find it sad. I have no intention of responding, but I am very confused as to her motivation. It seems like she wrote it not for me or even herself as much as she wrote it for her husband. I thought maybe she found God and was trying to argue for an annulment, but it seems a little late for that. I am also a little concerned that there might be something else going on and I don't want any drama with her. I ended that chapter almost 2 decades ago and have no desire to reopen this door. I plan to ignore, but is there anything I need or should do to make sure I don't get pulled into any of her craziness? Weird letter. I think you're spot on that she wrote the letter for herself or her husband. I suggest you do what you did with your memories of her, put them behind you and move on. Lady Dith protest too much. If she were truly that happy she never would have sent that letter. I think you might be right about her husband making her write that letter, and if that's the case her relationship is toxic as hell and also not your problem. She also could be experiencing some mental health issues. Or she's a fucking weirdo, I don't know. Whatever the case, that's a really weird letter to send, and whatever her reason is for sending it is not good and should be of no concern to you. I would bet a large sum of money on it, that she is not happy at all and her new life ain't all that she likes to pretend. She totally wrote this to make her feel better about the situation. That's why she pretty much wrote a whole letter about you being the problem. Who knows what inner demons haunt us? She may have gone through a hard time after the divorce and is trying to bury it in the past by writing a letter to you, but it is mainly to herself. I suspect she is still struggling in some fashion and is writing to you as a healing aid, therapy. My advice is to just ignore it and its inaccuracies. We remember what we choose to remember, and some are very good at fooling themselves. She is venting and you can afford to ignore it. Let it go and be content with the life you are enjoying now. It was easy for me to move on. She has moved on so much, but she still found time to write a letter to you. I don't care if the content is to badmouth you. She found time to write you a letter after 20 years of no communication. Seems like she's still salty because what I take from her letter is, I'm doing better than you. Yes, I am. Either she felt the need to one-up you just because, or she has misplaced her resentment and instead of being directed towards the people who forced her to marry you, she only seems to blame you. Do not respond to such immature attempt. Sounds like she wants to write a different narrative to her husband for some weird reason. File it away in the crazy pile. I'd actually keep it because you never know. But don't give it another thought. Maybe she's going through a 12-step program or therapy or something. Very strange. It could be that she was advised into putting everything into a letter by a therapist of some kind? Who knows? Frankly, you'll never get an answer, so why worry? Take a deep breath and move on from it. Bitch is crazy. She never moved on, and that letter to you is just her telling you the lies she's been telling herself for 20 years to convince herself she has. She needs therapy. Let that letter serve as confirmation that you made the right choice 20 years ago. My best friend is dating the person who assaulted me, and I don't know whether I should tell her. Trigger warning for sexual assault. Throwaway because most of my friends and family know of my personal account. My 17F closest friend, 18F, messaged me a couple of days ago informing me she's seeing someone. I was instantly over the moon, as she went through a pretty rough breakup a year ago and has felt hopeless about dating people since. As best friends do, she began telling me about their relationship. They've only been together for a few weeks, but apparently she is the happiest she's ever been with him. She said they've been texting each other and meeting up over the past few weeks so much that she can't stop thinking about him. I had the biggest smile on my face reading the messages she sent me, and began wondering if I know who her new boyfriend is. I asked if I knew him, and she told me that it was one of our friends. I was relieved when she said that, as he was guaranteed to be a good person if I'm friends with him. But then she told me his name, and I immediately felt sick. When I was 13, her boyfriend sexually assaulted me. She hadn't yet moved to our school, therefore they didn't know each other at the time, and wouldn't, for another year or so. I only told one person about this after it happened, and that was our school's guidance counselor. I felt incredibly anxious for the past few days over the thought of them together, and I've been questioning whether I should tell her about what he did. I don't want to ruin her happiness at all. If she trusts him and believes he's a good person, then I shouldn't stand in her way of happiness. But I don't know if she's looking at him through rose-tinted glasses, and I have no way of knowing if he's changed. I can't let him do to her what he did to me, and feel the urge to warn her about it. But like I said, I really don't want to put myself in the middle of her business. Considering how stressed I'm feeling over this, I'm not too sure whether I'm being irrational or not. Outside views would be really helpful, and the support any of you can give me is really highly appreciated. Thank you all in advance. Too long did not read. Unbeknownst to my best friend, she is dating the person who sexually assaulted me 5 years ago. I don't know whether to keep quiet and let her be happy or warn her to prevent him possibly hurting her. Update. Thank you all so much for the support, advice, and kind words. You have no idea how much it all meant to me today. An hour after I posted this, I talked to my sister about what had happened. Currently in university, I was only able to talk to her over the phone, but she showed me a lot of support. After reading all of your helpful comments and speaking to her, I decided I needed to speak to my friend as soon as possible. I wrote her a message that was somewhat similar to this post, in terms of letting her know my feelings and conflicting feelings about telling her. Once she found out what he had done, she showed me a lot of support and talked to me about how she accepts what has happened and isn't angry at me, etc. She asked for me to tell her exactly what he did and why, so she can be extra cautious. To be completely honest, giving her all the details felt unnatural, so I told her the very bare minimum of what happened. She was thankful that I could open up to her and let her know what had happened. She said she would choose me over him if she had to make the choice, but she really likes him and wants to continue seeing him. It was at this point I realized that my views of her had completely changed. Sure, she was very caring and empathetic when I told her what had happened, but overall she completely seemed to gloss over it. The final result of me telling her was exactly the same as before I told her, except now she knows I've been assaulted. It seems like she's having trouble accepting the fact that it's her boyfriend who did it to me. Anyway, I realized that I can't look at her the same way. For someone who has helped me through the hardest parts of my life, and vice versa, she seemed a little too apathetic that her new boyfriend is my abuser. I made the decision to cut off the friendship. We had a civil talk about it, where I explained that I can't look at her the same way now that she's willing to date him. We came to a mutual agreement that I should value my happiness over everything, and in order to be happy, I need to distance myself from them both. So for now, we've said goodbye. Our friendship is indefinitely over, as I suppose I would feel comfortable becoming her friend again if they break up. But I'm not counting on it, as I want her to be happy. I feel no malice towards her at all, but now that I've blocked her, deleted our chats, I feel a bit more free. Only one update is allowed, so this'll be the last you hear from me, unless I respond to a few more comments. Thank you all again, your unwavering support has meant so much to me. Stay safe, and get vaccinated. All the best. Less than 3. Tell her what happened. If I were dating someone new and one of my friends had an experience like that with them, I would absolutely want to know about it. I think if you read this back and imagine one of your friends was writing it about someone you just started dating, you'd have the exact same view. You need to tell her right away. Exactly the way you told us. If you lose her as a friend, at least you won't feel guilt if he later assaults her because you will have done what you could. The guidance counselor should have had him expelled or charged or both for this. Tell your friend, but prepare yourself emotionally for a bad reaction. People don't always believe the warnings when they're being love-bombed by abusers. She may already be besotted enough to pick him over you, and he'll be right in her ear spinning a bunch of sob stories and associated BS. All you can do is share your experience if you so choose to try and give her a heads up. But protect yourself most of all. Tell her. Tell her something happened to you 5 years ago that very few people know about. Say that you were really torn as to whether or not to say anything, but decided in the event that the person has not changed, you could not live with yourself if something happened due to your silence. I would ask her to please not shoot the messenger and at this affect your relationship with her, and then deliver your message. At that point, you have done all you can and just let the chips fall as they will. I think you should tell her, she needs to know it, if she's in a relationship with someone like this. I saw your update. I'm so sorry that it's worked out this way, but at the same time this internet stranger is incredibly proud of you for speaking up both to your friend and your sister. Actually, it's more likely that if you don't tell her, that will ruin the friendship. That's like as if you knew your friend's boyfriend had HIV and never said anything. It's a life-changing thing, so to keep quiet about it is definitely not good. I understand though that this is traumatic for you because it would require you to reveal this crime that you'd only told one person before. Honestly, the school counselor should have gotten the police involved. My sister, 20F, is accusing me, 25F, of molestation. Obligatory mobile apologies. Sorry if this is too heavy for this sub or if I should be posting this elsewhere. I am not asking for legal advice. Too long, did not read. At bottom. My sister, 20F, and I, 25F, have what I considered to be a pretty standard sibling relationship. We fight from time to time but mostly get along. We were particularly close during my mid to late teenage years but have since grown distant. I wasn't too concerned about no longer being close because I figured both our lives and interests had changed since high school, college. However, I have noticed her acting aloof around me and being rather uncomfortable when I offered her a goodbye hug a few months ago. Recently my sister made a friend we will call Maggie. Maggie told my sister that she was raped by one of their mutual classmates. I don't know the details, but I do know there was a police report and investigation. Unfortunately, there wasn't enough evidence to press charges. My sister was rightfully upset over the whole situation. Flash forward a month and my sister has returned from a study abroad trip that Maggie also attended. I live with my parents right now and she lives out of state. My mom calls my sister to check in on her and ask if she's heading home for the rest of the summer. According to my mother, she declines going home and then breaks down into tears. She told my mother that spending time with Maggie made her realize that she was also a victim of sexual assault and needs to get therapy, help. Then came the accusation that I was the perpetrator. My sister claims that I molested her for 3 years, ages 8–10, and threatened her not to tell anyone. I won't get into specifics, but she basically said that I raped her. My only guess as to where she's getting this impression is a few events that occurred when we were children. The most graphic of which was me demonstrating how to insert a tampon on myself when I was 11–12 when she asked me how they work. Besides that, I did teach her how to put on and take off a bra. I think I was around 13, we both hit puberty pretty fast. There was also a time where she walked in on me as I was getting into the shower. She saw my pubic hair and was confused as to why I had it. Later she asked me how to shave hers. I think she was around 10. None of these events involved any sexual touching or acts. Up till now I didn't even think they were a big deal. She claims otherwise and described some horrific things that were done to her. Things that I would never do. Things that never happened between us. The confusing part is that I don't see her lying about something this serious, and it does appear she is genuinely depressed. I'm vacillating between grief, shock, and rage. I don't want to call her a liar if something is going on, but most of what she told my mom never happened. My parents believe me and are not sure what to do. My mother will be heading up to her apartment later today. My parents requested that I don't engage for the moment. I haven't, but I'm at a loss. Is what I did above a bigger deal than I thought? What on earth should I do? I love my sister and I'm absolutely devastated that she thinks I've done something so horrific. Should I talk to her? Should I leave her be? Apparently she scheduled an appointment with a psychiatrist that she will see in about 2 weeks. I'm already in therapy for clinical depression, so obviously I'll be asking for help there too. Has anyone experienced something like this? What do you think is the best way to handle the situation without causing any harm? Too long did not read. Sister told my mother that I molested and raped her from the time she was 8 till about 10. Sister genuinely seems to be in a crisis. I did teach her things about sex and hygiene when we were little, but nothing sexual occurred. I have no idea how to approach the situation. My therapist convinced me that I had been molested as a child and it wasn't true. He was convinced that my depression stemmed from a big issue like that, I think based on his own experiences, and also convinced me that I wouldn't remember but would have negative feelings around sex. It wasn't true at all, I later realized, and the fallout really sucked. Instead, I just struggled with communication around sex because I hadn't learned how to speak about it, and my depression was actually more chemical. I feel like this could be happening to your sister since she is impressionable here. However, there's unfortunately not much you can do except reinforce your story and write down the specifics of what you remember. I am so sorry this is happening to you. Chances are she wants the attention, sympathy, validation her friend got from her sexual assault. Or she wants to share in the pain and have something in common with her friend, so she's created this elaborate lie so she can tell everyone she's a victim. Super fucked up, she needs serious help. There have been cases of this before. A, now adult, daughter was convinced by her abusive husband that her father had been molesting her during her childhood. He literally implanted these memories into her via repetition and conditioning. It's very possible that being with Maggie triggered something similar in your sister. It's possible that your sister was molested in her youth, but her brain filled in the gaps of her memory of her actual abuser with you. I have no advice other than to let you know this is not a unique experience, and I am sure there are some groups, therapy sessions, legal counsel you can find, and that I'm sorry this is happening. Wow. Your sis needs help. She really needs help. You've done absolutely nothing wrong and have my deepest sympathy. To reiterate, your sis needs serious help. Good luck with that. Therapy for you both, as you've arranged, is good. 100% keep your distance and do engage. I can't imagine how you must be feeling, but I would put it out of your head if you can. Your sister is having a serious break and you should be worried about her mental state, but at the same time, space is needed for both of you. Terrible situation. Hope everything resolves shortly and your sister is able to get the medical attention she needs. Memories can be created. She needs help, as saying her memories are false can really hurt her mental health. This is professional territory. There's just 3 options. She's just lying to feel closer to her friend. She really thinks it's true, which is very possible. Our brains invent memories every day, it's just rarely to this extent. You did those things and totally blacked them out. Our brains can also do that very well, with any kind of trauma, and yes, perpetrators also get trauma from being the abuser, depending on their profile. This has false memory syndrome written all over it. And it's a bugger to defend yourself against. Many people have been jailed on the basis this type of accusation. I am not asking for legal advice. I realize, but you should nevertheless get some. Go lawyer up. This is just the beginning. A false accusation ruined 2 years of my life, and the only reason it was only 2 years was that I lawyered up on day 1 and avoided my accuser ever since. So your parents are right. Not engaging her is the right advice, from an emotional, familial, sanity, and legal point of view. I wish you luck. Buckle up, you are in for a hellish couple of years. My 37F boyfriend, 35M, does not get along with my 4 years old. I mean, she's 4. A very typical 4-year-old in my opinion. Does she push buttons? Yes. Does she try to get away with anything she can? Yes. Does she drive me crazy sometimes? Of course. My boyfriend has 0 tolerance for her behavior. He gets upset any time she messes with anything that's not hers, when she inevitably doesn't listen, when she talks back, automatically assumes it was her if something is missing or messed with, there are 3 other children in the house, etc. I agree that she needs discipline and I do discipline her, but it's as if my boyfriend expects the behavior to change immediately and gets incredibly frustrated when he has to repeat himself. An example: we got a load of gravel for the flower beds and were hauling and distributing it when my 4-yo wanted to help. I know that a 4-yo's help isn't actually help and a lot of times makes the task more difficult, but I let her since she wanted to and I thought it would be a good learning experience and a good way to keep her busy. So I get her a little shovel and she goes to work. Of course she tries to shovel up some of the gravel my boyfriend had already laid. He told her not to do that, but she did it again. He throws his hands in the air and says something about all his hard work getting undone and stomps off. I was unaware of the interaction since I was on the other side of the yard at the time. Another example: we recently got cats. My 4-yo has a really hard time leaving the cats alone. My boyfriend is worried that she is going to hurt the cats. I personally don't think she will. Not intentionally, at least. We've tried telling and showing her how to be gentle and how to read their body language, but she won't leave them alone. She has now been grounded from electronics, dessert, the cats themselves. I've taken several of her toys away, and she is now never allowed to be left alone. Yet, she still somehow manages to interact with the cats. My boyfriend says nothing is being done to address the behavior and he feels like his feelings are being dismissed because it keeps happening. What else can I do? Lock her in her room all the time? That's not realistic. Right now I'm keeping my eyes on her at all times, but that isn't sustainable. He's had little kids before, so I don't know where his impatience comes from, but I'm at my wit's end. I'm tired of feeling like a terrible parent. I'm tired of feeling like a terrible girlfriend. I'm tired of feeling like I have to choose between my boyfriend and my kid. There's so much tension in the house. I just want them to get along. So, she's only 4, with reactions that are disproportionate to what is happening, shoveling gravel, being rough with cats, etc. She's not going to make that connection. Her brain isn't developed enough for that. She's going to connect him being angry with her getting in trouble. Big chunks, not fine details. And his reactions seem really inappropriate. It doesn't sound like she's doing anything that any other 4-year-old wouldn't be doing. You don't sound like a bad mom. He sounds like he doesn't know how to be a supportive partner. He needs to be reminded that he will always be second to the kids, and as a fully grown adult he can manage his own feelings while you help your child grow and navigate the changes she is experiencing in life. I'm tired of feeling like I have to choose between my boyfriend and my kid. And that's exactly what he wants you to do. I hope we don't have to tell you which one to choose. My stepfather was similar with me. I was also 4. My mother locked me in my room and neglected me to appease him. I hate them both more than anything now. Prioritize your kid. What's she doing to the cats? Will she learn when she gets scratched? Your boyfriend does not sound like a person who should be dating women with young children. The relationship with your daughter is always and should always be your priority while she is under your care, and if somebody is making you feel torn between him and your daughter, that's not okay. Every grown, well-adjusted adult knows that the love and bond between a mother and child needs to be nurtured, not encroached on. Do you think he will suddenly turn around and start liking her? Probably not. If you don't put your foot down and get ready to remove him from all of your lives, then your daughter will end up having a miserable childhood. Ostracized from her own family. Some people don't like other people's kids. He seems one of them. What you let kid going trough with him unacceptable. I think you should be aware that partners of single partners with kids are way more likely to abuse the kids. You need to put your child first. This is not a good relationship for her. It's not realistic for a 4-year-old to completely leave your cats alone, even if you ask her stuff away. Her brain cannot think into the future like that. You know what you need to do.